And yeah, we're probably going to keep booing the American anthem.
Yes. Isn't that incredible? That's Justin Trudeau's response to anything. Boo the national anthem of the United States. When we come back momentarily, my special guest, the Honorable Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada, and he offers a fresh perspective on the tariff situation and on the ongoing attempts to stop the war in Ukraine. When we come back. We need political change. But we also need the resolve to resist. So it's my great pleasure to have Maxime Bernier on the show. And I always like to say, and everybody won't get this, but who is John Galt in Canada? It's Maxime Bernier. This is a former foreign affairs minister and industry minister in the Stephen Harper government. I knew him well in those days when I worked in the Hill. Fantastic minister, but always a principled conservative, small c, principled conservative, and he still is today. And I wanted to start the show here with this clip from Justin Trudeau making an absolute ass of himself yesterday. And Donald Trump noticed, but so did you, and we'll get to your ex post in a second.
As we reflect on the impacts on Canadian workers and Canadian jobs and businesses, is that, first of all, there will be similar impacts on Americans losing their jobs, American families paying more for basic goods that they rely on at a time where times are tight everywhere. I want to speak directly to one specific American. Donald. In the over 8 years you and I have worked together, we've done big things. Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do. We're going to choose to try to buy Canadian products and forego bourbon and other classic American products. And yeah, we're probably going to keep booing the American anthem. But let me tell Americans, we're not booing you. We're not booing your teams.
And your response to this on X yesterday, Maxime, was escalating the trade war with the U.S. is as stupid as escalating the military war with Russia. Amen to that. There is nothing rational in how politicians in Canada are reacting to Trump's tariffs. Hysteria and self-defeating behavior are the new default mode of our governments. We're only going to hurt ourselves and more. Now, I noted as well that Chris Pavlovsky, a Canadian expatriate who's living in the States right now in charge of Rumble, which is really one of the only free speech organs out there in terms of social media, with the exception of X. He says, now that we've seen all the Canadian party leaders react to the U.S. tariffs and politics of the last month, who would be best to serve as the Canadian Prime Minister? Chris asked in a poll. Well, Jugmeat gets 1.4%, Justin Trudeau 2.8%, Pierre Poilievre 43.5%, and you, Mr. Bernier, 52.3% in Chris Pavlovsky's poll. Now, I guess two questions. Are you heartened by the fact that you are really responding to this tariff crisis in a way that Justin Trudeau is incapable of doing and Pierre Poilievre doesn't seem to want to do? And is Justin Trudeau absolutely going off his nut here when he insists upon antagonizing Donald Trump even more?
Thank you for asking. I'm very pleased to be with you, David. Before answering your question, I have a message for Poilievre, Trudeau, and Carney. Hey, guys, this is a very dumb thing to do. when you are imposing tariffs on us, 25%, it is on us. It is on Canadian consumers. So, Pierre, Justin, and Mark, stop doing dumb thing to Canadians. So that is my answer for them.
Well,
And
I,
yes,
I heard you on Redacted yesterday. You referred to these counter tariffs as a tax on Canadians. Now, why can't Pierre Poilievre, who's supposed to be a small C as well as a large C conservative, put that together? Because yes, these are going to be onerous taxes on Canadians. And in fact, if you look at this graph here, we are in the realm of Great Depression, not just recession, if we do these counter tariffs, because Trump has promised to come back with more tariffs. We are in a hugely fragile territory here. And of course, there's 4,000 items on Canada's 25% retaliatory counter tariff list, including most of the food we eat. And a lot of things liberals don't like us to have as well, such as firearms, even tires are on this list. This is going to be catastrophic. And yet the liberals, and I'll play a clip from Poilievre in a second, but he's in the same boat here. He's not saying anything any different. And I find that I find that absolutely disturbing.
yes, you're right, David. First, Canadians must understand that the tariffs that Trump is imposing, we won't pay for that. We, as Canadian consumers, we won't. These tariffs will be paid by businesses, American businesses and American consumers. That's the reality. What Trudeau is doing right now by imposing tariffs on goods that we import from America, from the United States, it is us who will pay for that. And yes, the list is right. The prices of your grocery will increase, and the inflation will be higher. We will pay for that. And actually, what we must do is just wait and see, because these tariffs will have an impact on American consumers. Everything that Trump the 25% tariffs coming from Trump, everything that will come from Canada. So American consumers will have to pay more. That being said, Trump did a campaign on managing inflation in the US. That is inflationary. So that would create inflation. So I believe that these tariffs cannot be there for, too long. Trump will have some pressures coming from businesses in the US and consumers. So we need to wait and see. But what we can do for our economy is to be sure that we'll have a real free trade in this country, to lower taxes to Canadians, to have a flat tax on business, to abolish the capital gains tax, to have a smaller government in Ottawa that won't have any deficit, to balance the budget as soon as possible, to cut all the spending that we are giving to the UN and foreign aid. So we can do a lot here in Canada to have a better and a more productive economy. And that's the solution. But reimposing counter tariffs, that is a stupid, like I wrote, that is a dumb policy. And answering your question, why all these establishment politicians are doing that, it's because they did what they did to us during the COVID hysteria. They use fear and propaganda. And so now, if you look at the survey and public opinion, a majority of Canadians are very mad at Donald Trump, and they want their government to do something. And so the government decided to do that. And Poilievre is the leader of the opposition, as in his only goal is to be prime minister. He's not doing politics with conviction. He's not, having real conservative policy. He's looking at the polls, and he knows that he will have more chances to be elected if he's going to the left and try to split the liberal votes. That's what he's doing right now. And so, during COVID, it took us 2 years to change the public opinion for these draconian measures to stop. And now, the public opinion, they don't want to educate the public opinion. They don't want to inform the public opinion. They don't want to tell them the truth about economy 101. So, and they're telling the public opinion, they're telling Canadians, it will hurt, it will be difficult. Yes, but it has not to be as difficult. What they're doing, it would be more difficult. It would be very dangerous for our economy, and we may go to a recession because of that. So stop, don't impose any tariffs, work on your own economy, on the Canadian economy, to be sure that it will be more productive. That's the solution. So it's very, very disappointing. We can see now that these politicians are, not working in the best interest of Canadians. What they're doing is the opposite. So it's and I look to the next election, and I hope it will be as soon as possible, because we will be out there and tell the truth to Canadians about that. We have the only real and good solutions for Canadians, for us to be more prosperous. Now they're doing the opposite. It is sad. All these politicians are the same. And I said long time ago that Poilievre and Trudeau are the same. They're the Lib-Con political party. And Poilievre's goal is to split the liberal votes, and he's showing us again in this crisis.
So you're basically saying stop talking about counter-tariffs because it's going to invite further disaster. Just cool it. We can resolve this. Because here's Donald Trump's response to Justin Trudeau yesterday. He says, please explain to Governor Trudeau of Canada that when he puts on a retaliatory tariff on the U.S., our reciprocal tariff will immediately increase by a like amount. So we could be looking at 75% increase, which of course will be absolutely catastrophic to the economy. But once again, I don't see this message sinking in. It's interesting to watch Trudeau at these news conferences. He's got the usual three dummies behind him. He's got Dominic LeBlanc and
Melanie Joly,
David McGuinty and Melanie Joly be standing behind him, but they look increasingly worried he's not getting this at all. And I just find that his attitude, as his days are supposedly numbered, he's not saying exactly when he's going to be leaving as prime minister. It might take a while. We need some transition, but I don't think Justin Trudeau understands what's going on here. And here's Pierre Poilievre reacting to this yesterday. And like I say, this get tough with Donald Trump. I understand why he's doing it. I know he thinks he has to do it, but it's the wrong thing to do, as you've already said.
A.m., President Trump stabbed America's best friend in the back. My message to the president is this: Canada will fight back. We will defend our people and our economy, and we will put Canada first. There's no doubt that our economy will suffer, but so will yours, President Trump. In fact, you're already paying the price, with trillions of dollars erased in stock market value over the last month of these threats. Already, Americans are paying higher gas prices, as at midnight, a new American gas tax kicked in on U.S. working-class taxpayers and motorists. Your workers will soon start losing jobs they had upgrading Canadian raw materials, which, by the way, you were getting at an incredible and ridiculous bargain. And your businesses will be selling fewer products to your closest neighbor.
So there he goes. Once again, I'm going to get tough with Donald Trump, and it might be catastrophic. It might be no holds barred, but we can take it. Yeah, no, we can't, Poilievre. We cannot take 75%. And I think more and more people are waking up to what you're saying is that just cool it. And I interviewed Danielle Smith, Alberta Premier, about a week and a half ago, and that's exactly the advice she had. Cool it. Don't strike back. Let's negotiate. Let's resolve this. Let's find a solution. But we can't win a trade war with the United States. There's no way that's ever going to happen. So back off. Don't make these threats. But I don't see that message getting through. And you mentioned the COVID thing. I see the same thing happening again. It's like we're only being shown one way out of this, which is to raise the ground, to absolutely strike back and just to hell with the consequences. And that's all we heard during the first part of COVID, of course, until the Freedom Convoy demanded change. But all we heard from all of the media, from the government, from the official opposition, just follow the mandates, follow the advice of the government. There is no other alternative. So thank God somebody else out there is actually saying there is an alternative. There's another discourse here, but we're not talking about it. I think you're the only politician in Canada who's actually talking about another way out here.
Absolutely, David. And if the clip that you did show us about Poilievre, his description of what will happen in the U.S. economy because of the 25% tariffs that Trump did impose on his economy. The description is great. That is real. That is what will happen in the U.S. But now, just after that, he's doing the same thing. All what he said to the U.S., loss of job, prices that will increase. It will be the same with our 25% tariff that is okay with that is ready to impose on us. So he's telling Donald Trump, what you're doing for your economy is very bad. Your people will lose their jobs and prices will go up. And he's doing the same thing here in Canada. And he's telling us that it's for our good. It is for, our best interest. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. And a lot of people forget, because things are bad enough, that there's another carbon tax increase coming, which will certainly be added. But what is really frightening, and once again, I think this is something you need to talk about, because I haven't heard a peep out of Poilievre or the Conservatives about Mark Carney's plan for a carbon tariff. And here he describes it here.
The thing we're going to do is to ensure that there's fair competition for our companies and that we penalize high polluting foreign imports. So we're going to develop a carbon border adjustment mechanism. What that does is promote jobs here at home. It prevents carbon leakage abroad, and it aligns Canada with our allies who are still engaged in the fight against climate change.
So here he is talking about a carbon tariff. Now, and he refers to this, of course, in this very nebulous way, and like it's just something out there that's going to help Canadian businesses, except it's going to probably promote the expulsion of most businesses in Canada who are saying, no, I'm not going to pay for this. Why shouldn't I go to the United States where there's no carbon tax, there's no corporate carbon tax, and there's no carbon tariff that I have to worry about now? But once again, I have been talking about this for the last 3 weeks. I haven't heard the Conservative Party of Canada even mention that Mark Carney wants to introduce a carbon tariff in addition to the corporate carbon tax that he keeps talking about, which he claims is going to be less onerous than the personal carbon tax that we're all paying right now. But he's essentially going to double the carbon tax in Canada with this tariff, with the corporate carbon tax, which they'll pass on to consumers, of course. And yet we're supposed to think Mark Carney is figuring a solution here. I mean, what do you think about this carbon tariff that he's talking about?
Yeah, Carney and Poilievre on that, they share the same position. They are in line with the Paris Accord, and all that is happening because of the Paris Accord. We will withdraw from the Paris Accord. That's it. Poilievre won't, Carney won't. Poilievre will fight climate change by imposing more regulations on businesses, and, they will transfer their costs to us consumers. Carney will do a different thing. He will impose tariffs. And as I just said, a tariff is a tax on us. So he will impose us. So both of them won't impose a carbon tax, but they will find a new way to tax us. And Poilievre by regulation, and prices will be higher for us. And Carney by that, carbon tariff. So it's a tax. That's why Poilievre is not winning right now. That's why Poilievre is going down in the polls, because he is like the liberals. He is a liberal light. If people want a real change, if people they want a politician and a political party that will put Canada first for real and that will work for Canadians, we are there. We are the only national political party. The PPC will do that.
It's certainly the only political party to even talking about it right now, because it's like this language isn't even being recognized. This carbon tariff isn't even being recognized by the Conservative Party of Canada, and I haven't heard anything from anybody about how this is going to be catastrophic for the economy. But you basically answered my next question as to why is Pierre Poilievre in lockstep with the Trudeau government right now. It's like when I hear Pierre Poilievre talk, I'm thinking, is this a Trudeau cabinet minister at the moment? Because he's talking exactly like Justin Trudeau, and uh, is this a policy problem, or is it a communication problem? Because you were in government with Stephen Harper, you know what the conservative communications likes to do. As soon as there's a crisis, move the party to the left, act and talk like liberals. But do you think this is really a policy problem and not just a communication problem?
It's a policy, it's fundamental. Harper did that during the financial crisis. He, created at that time the biggest deficit of the history of our country. Yes, he was able 5 years later to balance the budget in 2015, but he did create that deficit. And, when you have a deficit, the deficit of today are the taxes of tomorrow and the inflation of tomorrow. So, yeah, when there's a crisis, they're not conservative. They don't want to manage a smaller government. They want to spend money that we don't have. Harper did that, and Poilievre is doing the same. He's going to the left, like the liberals, to fight that supposed crisis. The crisis that we are having, it's not the tariffs that Trump is imposing on American consumers. It's our reaction to these tariffs, and the crisis that we have. It's our economy. We need to balance the budget. We need to have a smaller government. We need to do everything to be able to give more freedom to Canadians. And the best way to do that is to by lower their taxes. So Poilievre is like Trudeau on that. He will, worsen the economy with these tariffs. And, his goal is to split the Liberal votes. I cannot say better than that.
Well, do you think it's actually possible now that Canadians are going to be fooled by Mark Carney masquerading as some kind of moderate? He's actually posturing as some sort of Pierre Poilievre light, like he's just a bit left of Pierre Poilievre, much more serious than Justin Trudeau. I mean, this is a man with the personality of a reptile. He is completely unengaging. I find his public speaking is horrible. His French is horrible, and from a party that demands bilingualism as a prerequisite to be leader, and yet he's being sold to the Canadian people as the savior of the Liberal Party and the savior of Canada. And yet I think he's even more dangerous than Justin Trudeau because people tend to take him more seriously. Now, you were in government when Mark Carney was the Governor Bank of Canada, and supposedly he almost became our finance minister. But what is your feeling about Mark Carney as a danger, as an even greater danger than Justin Trudeau has been?
He is the globalist in chief, and he's a big globalist, a big spender. He will spend the money that we don't have, and he tried to tell us that he will balance the budget, the operation budget, and take our budget and say, oh, there's two kind of spending, the spending and the investment. No, when the federal government is spending, that's not an investment, that's spending. So he will try to find a way to tell Canadians that, oh, he is balancing the operation budget. No, you need to balance the global budget, and he won't do that. So yes, Carney is a little bit as dangerous as Trudeau. But now Poilievre is speaking like the Liberals. So, we are the only other options. All these options sucks right now. They're not. It's so sad to see what Poilievre is doing right now. And don't forget, the one that is giving advice to Poilievre is Stephen Harper. Stephen Harper wrote a letter in the Global Mail 2 weekends ago. And he said we must impose these tariffs that will hurt our economy, that may bring us into a recession, but that's the best thing to do. So he's telling Canadians, I love you so much that we need to tax you more, and you will lose your jobs, but that's okay. So, and he's saying that we need to do that because we want to preserve our sovereignty. We are a sovereign country. The 50 first states, it's a joke. He won't do anything. He won't be able to conquer military our country. We are his neighbors. He won't do that. He is not Hitler. This country is sovereign, and we don't need to impose more taxes on Canadians to try to look like, we have the best interest of our country. They don't. Nobody, no leaders today, including the former conservative Harper, no leaders today have our interests at heart. They are working against us right now.
Well, I think that's, you were in the Stephen Harper cabinet, and he did disappoint conservatives very, very, very many times. And so, thank you for acknowledging that. But Pierre Poilievre likes.
I just want to say about that, Harper.
Yeah.
The only question for your viewers: what is the legacy of Stephen Harper? After 9 years in power, did he did a real conservative reform? What is the legacy? Zero, yet. Except maybe he dismantled the weed board. That's the only legacy. So, because his logic was incremental. I will do little reforms, and everything will go well. I was with him in 2006. We had a minority government. I understand why Harper was not able to do big reforms. We didn't have the majority. 2008, another minority government. 2011, we had a national majority government. I said at that time to myself, we will be a real conservative government. We will do some privatization. We will balance the budget. We will cut taxes. No, he did the opposite. He was spending more. He did increase the equalization formula to be able to give more money to Quebec to try to buy votes in Quebec. And he was more generous. And by doing that, that was hurting Western Canada. So he was taking the votes of Western Canada for granted, and Poilievre is doing the same. So it's why I said the Conservative Party of Canada is morally and intellectually corrupt. They don't promote real conservative ideas, and they are speaking like liberals. And when they are doing that, they are giving more credibility to the leftist narrative.
Yeah, I think of what you're saying there. All of that pandering that Stephen Harper did to the liberals, to the left of center, to the red Tories, to those so-called moderates in the Conservative Party, and he still lost the next election to Justin Trudeau. All of that pandering for nothing. And because he was listening to a communications team, many of whom I know, and they're back with Poilievre. You know who I'm talking about. They're back with Poilievre, and they're giving him the same advice they gave Stephen Harper. And they're going to run the same election campaign as they ran for Stephen Harper in 2015, which was disastrous because it was a campaign all about Stephen Harper. And what was he about anymore? Well, he really couldn't define himself as a conservative. But I want to ask you this because Poilievre loves to talk about Canada first now. And of course, that came out of the fact that people were saying, "Are you too MAGA? Are you a Trump supporter?" So suddenly, Poilievre talked about Canada first. I'm not sure what he even means by that anymore. He loves to use that as rhetoric. He puts it out there every day. I'm Canada first. I'm Canada first. I'm not sure what it is. What is Canada first to you, Maxime?
for first, for Poilievre, it is a slogan. It is an empty slogan, like all these slogans. Fix the budget, hack the tax, with no policies behind that. So for us, it is not an empty slogan. It is a reality. When I'm saying we need to put Canada first and Canadian first, that is what I said when we created the People's Party of Canada in 2018. I said this political party will put Canadian first. We will work for our country. And with policies, for example, like I said, withdraw from the Paris Accord. That is putting Canada first. Withdraw from the UN Global Compact on migration. That is putting Canada first and Canadian first, not foreigners and migrants. That is putting our Canadian first. Having a moratorium on immigration. That is putting Canada first, a pause on immigration, because, young Canadians will be able to have a job. Now they'll not be able because we are importing cheap labor for big businesses. So, and they are cheating. They don't respect our immigration legislations. We have a lot of illegals, migrants in this country. We need to deport them. That is putting Canada first. I can go on about the woke agenda. We need to end that woke agenda, all that radical leftist agenda. The transition of kids. There's no transition. A young boy cannot be a young girl. There's only two sexes. That is putting our values, Canadian and Western values first. So not the leftist and woke ideology. We need to fight that. The fact that, a biological man can compete against women in sport, that's not fair. That's not in line with our values, Western values. That is not putting our values in Canada first. We need to end that. So if you look at our platform, we are putting our country first. On foreign aid, all that money that is going to other countries, $8 billion. We need to stop that and bring it home, like Poilievre liked to say. Bring it home, that money coming from that we are giving to foreign aid for the promotion of woke ideology. We need to stop that, bring that home, and help Canadians first. That is putting Canada first. Poilievre doesn't have any policies that is showing that is serious when he's saying that he's putting Canada first. It's only an empty slogan, and more people can see through that now.
I hope that's the case because he likes to talk about a bring it home tax cut. I'm not even sure what that is because it doesn't have a number in front of it. It's a slogan, like you say. But another thing that disturbs me right now, and this really got me irate last week when Poilievre decided he had to get his voice out there in support of Ukraine again. And sorry, I've just lost Maxime here. I don't know. Anyway, that we have hopefully Maxime will be able to join us again. We did have 35 minutes with him. I was about to ask him about Ukraine and whether or not he believes it's a wise idea to keep pouring billions of dollars. Okay, yeah, you're back. Thank you. Okay, yeah. My basically the next to last question is: Poilievre is always propping up the corrupt regime in Ukraine. We know that President Vladimir Zelensky is a tyrant. He's a dictator. He jails his opposition. He goes around. He rounds up people to put them in the army as cannon fodder. The war needs to end. We have to stop putting billions of dollars of our money. And by the way, Trudeau last week talked about $5 billion of seized Russian assets or stolen Russian assets. He doesn't have $5 billion of seized Russian assets. I looked it up. It's less. It's about $150,000 he seized in Russian assets. So he lied about giving Ukraine another $5 billion, but it's not going to be taxpayer money. It's going to be seized Russian assets. I say it's time to stop giving Ukraine aid, to stop the war, and to stop propping up one of the most corrupt regimes in Eastern Europe. What do you say?
You're absolutely right on that, David. That's what we said in the beginning of that crisis, of that war. We said Canada must not participate in that. We must not give money to Ukraine. Ukraine is a democracy, yes, but a corrupt democracy. And, that conflict started because of the West, because we didn't respect what we said to the Soviet Union at that time. When the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, we had after that the reunification of Germany, East and West. And Khrushchev, said, okay, I'm okay for the reunification of Germany at one condition. I don't want to see the expansion of NATO in the East. And we said, yes, NATO won't have any expansion. And we didn't follow through that. What we did, we had an expansion of NATO in Eastern Europe. And now, we are telling Russia that we want Ukraine to be part of NATO. And if Ukraine is part of NATO, that means that the US and NATO will be able to have a military base in Ukraine at the doors of Russia. It was not okay for the US in 1962 when the Soviet Union wanted to put missiles in Cuba at the doors of the US. And now it's okay for us. We can do that. And Putin didn't want that. He told us that many times in 2007 and many times, don't do that. And now we are pushing Ukraine to be part of NATO. And, the worst of that is the US did not respect in 2019 the treaty that they signed with Russia about the security and the missiles. And, we had a nuclear treaty to manage, missiles, nuclear missiles in Europe. The US decided to withdraw from that. And now, for Russia, they are saying, if Ukraine is part of NATO, they will have a NATO base and they may be able to have nuclear missiles in that base in Ukraine. And I can understand why Putin doesn't want that. And add to that, that Crimea and Donbass were, under Russian jurisdictions long time ago. These people are speaking Russian. These people wanted to be with Russia. They had a referendum in 2014, and they wanted to be part of Russia. And so, we were telling, Canadians and Europeans that Putin is Hitler, he will conquer Europe, is very dangerous. No, he is ready to have a peace, a negotiation. And actually, he was ready. He did the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. In April 2022, less than 2 months after the invasion, he was being ready to negotiate a peace agreement with Zelensky in Istanbul. And Zelensky was okay with that, but he came back to Ukraine, and the US and UK said, no, don't sign that. So now we have a peace deal. He must accept that, and we must stop that war. It's very dangerous for, a third world war. And there's a good agreement on the table, and you have Trudeau and all these European leaders and Poilievre that are saying, we're going to give more ammunition to Ukraine, we're going to give more financial aid to Ukraine for them to be able to go and do that war again. The reality is Ukraine lost the war. That's it. And now they must have that peace agreement that is on the table. It is not in the interest of our country. It is not in the interest of the Western world to have that war again, the proxy war against with Russia. Russia is not our enemy. Our enemy here in Canada is our own government and these establishment politicians who are not working in the best interests of our country.
Yeah, when folks, that is called common sense policy right there. And I have to say, I have Ukrainian lineage. My maternal grandmother was Ukrainian. But I think this is insanity today. We came so close to a nuclear war last November when we started sending missiles into Russia. And we came within days of retaliation. Thank God Donald Trump is working toward peace solution here. And I also say I'm not throwing Donald Trump out right now because of this trade dispute. I don't want these tariffs any more than anybody else. I think they're going to be devastating. But he's working very hard on issues that are important to me. And you mentioned some of those, like the DEI, like critical race theory, and of course the whole transgender illusion. He's working hard to stop those things. I want to work with Donald Trump in Canada to reverse the wave that's come upon this country that Justin Trudeau brought upon us. But final question, you've been very generous with your time this morning, Maxime, but do you expect we're going to have an election sometime this year? I hope it's soon. I hope it's within the next 2 months. We need to get rid of this Liberal government one way or the other. But we will have an election, I think, this year, unless the Liberals somehow keep us going until the next year. But do you think this is the breakthrough year for the People's Party of Canada? And second part of this, what do you tell small C conservative voters, libertarian voters, when they say, well, if I vote for the PPC, I'm going to split the vote and I'm going to get the Liberals in power? How do you respond to that?
Well, like I said in the beginning, I'm not splitting any votes. The Poilievre is splitting the Liberal votes. Look at what he's saying and what he's doing in his policies. He's like the Liberals. So I'm telling them, if you want to have, if you want to have your ideas and your values to win, you need to vote for what you believe in. You'll have more chances to have what you want if you vote for what you want. And for us, we are the only party that is with you and ready to fight. And, if you increase our percentage of the vote from 5 to 10 or 15%, we may have, and I hope we will, our first candidate elected at this election. And for us, we will be your insurance policy that, in Canada, we are speaking about the real challenges that we have with real common sense conservatives policies, and we are able to push that here in Canada. So, we will support Poilievre as a political party when Poilievre will be a real conservative, and we will shame him when he won't, like I did today. So it's a win for you. If you vote for what you believe, you have more chances to have what you want. So I'm telling you, there's no risk when you vote for your ideas. And, voting for us, it's a vote for everything. We don't do any polling and focus group. We are doing politics based on convictions and ideas, and we are speaking about these ideas with passion and conviction until we win the battle of ideas. So we need you to be more influential, and we'll see. But we are the last chance for this country. if our policies are not adopted here in Canada, this country is falling apart. You have Western Canada that are very mad at Eastern Canada, the equalization formula that is unfair, and we need to change that, and by being radically less generous and change that formula for the benefit of Western Canada. So we need to have this discussion. And we need to have a radical decentralization in our country. That's what we want to do. People, actually, mostly out west, they don't like that big, fat federal government that is telling them what to do or what not to do. We want to end that and give more autonomy to provincial governments and more autonomy and freedom to Canadians. So if you like that, I hope that you'll vote for us. And if you don't like what I'm saying, don't vote for us, because we won't change.
Well, like you, I always say I applaud the Conservative Party of Canada and Pierre Poilievre when they do something that's very, very conservative and principled conservative. I applaud them when they have true conservative policy. I will criticize them otherwise. I'm not in the pocket of any political party. And, I would criticize you too if I disagreed with or didn't think you were putting out real conservative, small c conservative libertarian policy. But I've never found occasion to have to do that, because I don't think I've ever heard you say anything policy-wise that I can disagree with. And maybe you will someday. But my viewers are somewhat evenly split between Conservative Party of Canada supporters and PPC supporters. And I always tell them I'm not in the bag for any political party. I support good conservative, small c conservative policy, and I'll support any political leader that enunciates it, articulates it. And that's what you always do when you're on my show and anytime I hear you anywhere else. So, Maxime, thank you for coming on the show. You're always welcome here. And I wish you all the best. You're a friend and a politician, and there's not many politicians I've ever admired, but I think you fit the bill. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, David, for having me. That's a nice opportunity. And I may say to your viewers, if one of your viewers is, a podcaster or very active on social media, I'm ready to do an interview also. My goal is to be active, on the ground for this election, traveling across the country, but also on social media. As you know, the mainstream media cancel us and they don't want to put our point of view out there. So we need to be out and speak about our values to Canadians, and we need to be able to reach to more Canadians. So the fact that you did interview me today, I'm very pleased with that. And so if other YouTubers or podcasters want the same, they can just write to us at info@peoplespartyofcanada.ca. And if you want to know more, if your viewers want to know more about our policy, they can go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca, and click on platform. All our policies are there. So thank you, David, for that opportunity. And I hope I'll be able to be with you again during that electoral campaign.
You certainly will. You're always welcome here, Maxime. So thank you again for joining me today, and we will see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
That was Maxime Bernier. I always enjoy talking to. That's common sense policy, folks. And I think this is a man who really believes in principled conservatism, principled libertarianism, and wants to deliver. So I put that out there. I have a lot of people always say, you're in the bag for Poilievre. No, I'm not. I'm not in the bag for any politician, any political party. I am in the bag for truth, for justice, and for pushing solid conservative policy, wherever it comes from. And that's what I heard today. So thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate your support and your help. And we'll be back with some concluding. Yes, have a look at the store, check out the gear we have. I think it's some of the best stuff available out there. Show the fact that you do support small c conservative ideas and principles. Show people that you do want to resolve to resist this Trudeau government. We need to get rid of it this year as soon as possible. Let's all hope and pray that we get an earlier election, because this could go on. And the longer it goes on under the Liberals, the worse it becomes. We need a change in government, the one that has a mandate from the people. And this one doesn't right now. Thank you again for watching. I'll be back again tomorrow with all the news I can possibly deliver. All the news you need to know so we can continue to resist.